Of all the counties of Britain, perhaps the most celebrated for its wildlife is Norfolk. From the Wash in the northwest to the Broads, from the North Norfolk coast to the Brecks, everywhere there is rare and special wildlife. And protecting it since 1926 is Norfolk Wildlife Trust, which today is engaged in a national programme called Living Landscapes. Living Landscapes are about restoring habitat where it exists, recreating habitat where it has been lost, and reconnecting areas of isolated habitat. Crucially, it's also about reconnecting people with the landscapes they inhabit. Across this series, we'll be exploring the living landscapes of our county, meeting the people who are helping to restore them, and learning about the rare wildlife which inhabits them. This is Wild Norfolk. In the west of Norfolk, close to the town of King's Lynn, is the smallest of Norfolk Wildlife Trust's living landscape projects, the Gaywood Valley. The landscape history here is similar to that of the Brecks. Underneath lies late Cretaceous chalk formed in a shallow sea, and on top, sand which was left here by a glaciation of the Ice Age. The jewel of this landscape, its most precious wildlife habitat, is the heathland to be found here at Roydon Common and Grimston Warren. Though small, the Gaywood Valley holds much more than just heathland. The Gaywood itself is a chalk river which flows 13 kilometres from east to west through farmland, through unimproved grassland and fen and past ancient woods until finally it reaches King's Lynn. Roydon Common is Norfolk's largest area of heathland and is home to many specialist species, including some which can be found nowhere else in Norfolk or even East Anglia. In the dry heath, there are nesting nightjars, woodlarks and tree pipits, and in wet areas like the one you can see behind me, there are natterjack toads, bog orchids, there are nesting curlews, two rare species of dragonfly, the keeled skimmer and the black darter, and East Anglia's only population of the very rare raft spider. Though Roydon Common is still Norfolk's most extensive heath, until the 1960s, adjoining Grimston Warren was yet more precious. Then in the 60s it was planted with conifers and lost to conservation. Or so it seemed, because in 1999, in a daring project, Norfolk Wildlife Trust purchased Grimston Warren and began painstakingly to remove the conifers and years of accumulated pine needles to reveal the topsoil, and within it the precious seeds of heathers and other heathland plants, allowing this wonderful site once more to become a heath. I met Bill Boyd of Norfolk Wildlife Trust to find out how the project had gone. It's hard to imagine that 20 years ago this was all a conifer plantation.
Indeed, and it was a conifer plantation for 50 years.
For 50 years?
Yeah.
You had to remove all of the leaf litter, the pine needles, down to the layer of the original soil?
Yes,
yeah.
And not actually the soil, but the little sort of humic layer where we hoped the heather seed and the other seed bank.
Which it
resided.
certainly was,
yeah.
Because here it is. What have been the real highlights for you in terms of wildlife coming back to the heath?
Well, obviously the heather, so it wouldn't be a heath without it, but nightjar and woodlark. The woodlarks came back pretty much as soon as we'd felled, but the nightjar were here while we were felling and while we were clearing up, so we had to work around them.
Good,
and
good. Nesting, as you talked.
Nesting, yes.
Good,
in fact, there was a nest very close to here, you know, with the machinery going around. But I knew from when I used to work in the Brecks that nightjars will sit with you know, Forestry Commission machinery rumbling past within a few metres.
So all in all, a huge success for heathland wildlife in Norfolk?
I would say so, yes. I'm absolutely blown away by it myself.
The water on a heath is very low in nutrients, so plants that live here have to be highly adapted to their environment. Growing just here, so tiny that it's hard to see on camera, is the round-leaved sundew, a carnivorous plant that catches insects in order to obtain nitrogen from the proteins in their bodies. What makes the Gaywood Valley even more special is that it is the most urban of all Norfolk's living landscape projects. the last stretches of the river pass through the town of King's Lynn and come into contact with thousands of urban people. The river itself passes through the Walks, a park in the centre of the town, and by Harding's Pits, an area of restored grassland. Eventually it flows into the Ouse, from here to the Wash and into the North Sea.
We do work very closely with the Dartmoor Heritage Trust, who work to ensure the continued survival of the Dartmoor ponies as a breed. So we take a lot of the Dartmoor ponies off Dartmoor, and they're perfect for us because they are very hardy animals. They can live out in environments like this all year round, and they do the job we want them to do. So by working with the Trust, we make sure of the continued use of Dartmoor ponies as a breed. We very much rely on volunteers for management of these ponies. We've got ponies spread across a number of our nature reserves right across Norfolk. And on Roydon especially, we rely on long-term volunteers to check them every day, make sure their welfare is high, and then if there are any problems, the volunteers report it into me and we can come and deal with it.
Ponies, like these Dartmoors, have grazed the wild habitats of the Gaywood Valley living landscape for millennia, and it's Norfolk Wildlife Trust's commitment that they will continue to graze here for centuries to come, to protect these rare heath habitats, as at Roydon Common, for the rare wildlife that lives here and for the people of King's Lynn nearby and elsewhere in Norfolk. If you're interested to get involved in the Gaywood Valley living landscape, or your own local living landscape wherever you live in Norfolk, you can find out more about volunteering opportunities, about taking part in a conservation group on the Norfolk Wildlife Trust website.